All right, everybody, I'm Logan Alec. This is my stimulus update for Saturday, June 6th. So 3 things happened yesterday. 3 significant things happened yesterday in the world of stimulus. I'm going to tell you what all 3 of them are right now, and then I'm going to expand on them a bit, and then I'm going to tell you what various congressional leaders said they think the path going forward should be, okay? First significant thing that happened yesterday is Trump signed into law the PPP Flex Act. Second significant thing that happened yesterday is the Labor Department released the May jobs report, all right? Third significant thing that happened yesterday is Trump actually said the word stimulus, all right? So let's jump into these one by one, okay? First thing, Trump signed into law the Paycheck Protection Program Flexibility Act. I already made a video earlier this week telling you what you need to know about this act, so I'm not going to go into that here. In a nutshell, this is a law that will make it easier for small business owners to have their Paycheck Protection Program loans forgiven, okay? It was passed by the House last week, 417-1, and was passed by unanimous consent in the Senate earlier this week, and President Trump signed it into law yesterday. And he actually had some very bipartisan words to say as he was signing it into law. He said, "I want to thank the Democrats. I think we had essentially unanimous votes in the Senate and the House." He said it's a very important piece of legislation. So he's acknowledging here that the Democrats had a role to play in this, right? And I think that's a good sign, right? Because if we want to see another stimulus package passed, it will need bipartisan support, given that the House is controlled by Democrats, the Senate by Republicans, and obviously the president is a Republican. Okay, so it's nice when people are talking nicely, or at least pretending to be talking nicely, right? Trump had some other things to say about the economy in light of the jobs report. Okay, second thing that happened yesterday is the Labor Department released the May jobs report, and it was way better than expected. Okay, we had egghead economists saying that, oh my gosh, May's going to look so bad. The economy is going to shed over 8 million jobs over April. We might be looking at Great Depression type unemployment. The jobs report came out. It actually said that the economy added 2.5 million jobs in May, and that the unemployment rate went from 14.7% in April to 13.3% in May. Now, that 13.3%, just like any number the government puts out, might be a little misleading. You may have heard about this potential misclassification error, right? That maybe it's it's understated by 3%. I made a 20-minute video yesterday going through the jobs report, and I did some math, and I showed you why maybe the actual number, what one would actually think the number is, might be north of 17% if you include some people that should be included in there. Anyway, watch the video yesterday. I spent 20 minutes on it. I don't want to really go into it again here all over again. But the point is, look, May was better than April, and the economy did add jobs in May, okay? And Trump had a field day with this yesterday. He was tweeting about it in the Rose Garden. He said that the jobs report was indicative of a better than V-shaped recovery, right? He called it a rocket ship, right? V-shaped recovery is, okay, economy's going down and then it's going up like a V. He's saying this thing is like a rocket ship, went down and then it's going straight up like a rocket. I think that's a bit of an overstatement, but of course, let him have his day, right? Today is probably, if you think of it, the greatest comeback in American history. That is, I think, a little bit of a stretch, right? Greatest comeback in America. Like, first of all, would you really say it's a comeback if you're not out of the woods yet? I mean, let's give the jobs report the benefit of the doubt, and let's say the actual unemployment number is 13.3%. Okay, that's still worse than the 10% number that was the peak unemployment during the Great Recession. Okay, it's like if you're playing basketball, and let's say you're down 60 to 28 at halftime, and then somehow miraculously, you catch up to 90 to 78 with 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter, right? Have you really made a comeback yet? Unless you've actually won the game, I wouldn't say so. I think that's some strong language, okay? And don't read into those numbers. Those numbers just came into my head. I'm not trying to make any correlation with the economy there with those numbers, all right? So please don't read into that. Trump also said this. To save the economy, we passed several pieces of critical legislation. Obviously, the big one was the CARES Act. We're set up to do more if we want. I think we should because we are dominant, all right? So now I know that many Senate Republicans, some of the more hawkish ones, right? I mean hawk like a bird, right? I clarified that yesterday in my jobs report video. They might look at this jobs report and say, we're done with more stimulus. We don't want to spend any more money. We don't want to spend any more money on the people, right? You know there are going to be some Senate Republicans who come out and say that. How many? I don't know. I hope it's not a lot, right? But we had the president talking about more stimulus, and he used the S word yesterday. He actually used the S word. I made a whole video about that right when it happened. Okay, he did not say stimulus check or stimulus checks or anything like that. He just said more stimulus. Okay, I think he's being a bit of a tease if he doesn't have more stimulus checks in mind, but to be fair, he could just very well be referring to another stimulus package as a whole, right? Just another relief bill. Watch the clip yesterday for my video. I put the whole clip in there, and you be the judge, all right? Now, when he was talking about stimulus, he did flank his actual use of the word stimulus by two very specific things that he has in mind. The first thing is the payroll tax cut, and we've talked about that a lot here on the channel. Obviously, that would benefit businesses and those who are in the workforce, right? Wouldn't really benefit those who are not in the workforce. And then the other thing he mentioned was various maybe tax benefits for industries like the restaurant industry. So those are very two specific things he has in mind. He didn't specifically mention stimulus checks, all right? But he did say the word stimulus, which I take to be a good sign. Now, the May jobs report wasn't all rosy. Permanent job losers actually went up. Okay, the decrease in unemployment rate was largely due to those on temporary layoff coming back to work. Permanent job losers actually went up. Okay, and there's a report that came out. This is from yesterday that said bankruptcies declared by businesses in the U.S. rose nearly 50% in May, year over year. In May alone, 722 businesses across the country filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. That's up 48% from May 2019, and that's despite the PPP. So we're definitely not out of the woods yet. I would expect that there will be calls for perhaps additional help to small businesses in the next relief bill, and obviously calls for state and local funding. And I hope there's a call on both sides of the aisle for another round of stimulus checks, because I know a lot of you really need that money. All right. But let's talk about what the congressional leaders themselves said after the jobs report was released yesterday. Let's start with Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House. She said, the May jobs report shows that decisive action by Congress to support small businesses and workers can make a strong difference in our economy. But with more than 100,000 Americans tragically dead, 21 million still out of work, and state and local budgets collapsing, now is the worst possible moment to take our foot off the gas. Okay, so she's framing this as, yeah, this is great. Okay, but instead of looking at these numbers and saying, oh, we don't need to do any more, she's saying, no, we got to keep the momentum going. Let's not take our foot off the gas. She said families are struggling to feed their children and pay their bills as the expiration date of the new lifelines delivered in previous coronavirus bills rapidly approaches. Obviously, she's intimating there the July 31st expiration date of things like the $600 weekly FPUC, okay, for those on unemployment. The GOP Senate must pass the HEROES Act, or else this fragile progress will collapse and the tens of millions of Americans still desperate for help will fall deeper into despair. The president must join us to support real action to protect lives and livelihoods rather than hide behind these job numbers and pretend that the job is done. I don't like that she said that. Okay, I think what she said before was very fair, right? I think it sounded bipartisan. It was very much in line with what the president was saying. We still have to keep the momentum going. But then she kind of targets the GOP Senate again, okay, and tells them they got to pass the HEROES Act, right? Even though no one really likes that thing, okay? It's not going to happen, Nancy. So I think that was it doesn't look good, right, for her to come out. I've talked about this before, but for the House Democrats to come out with this $3 trillion bill, it doesn't have a chance in heck of passing. Anyway, let's move on to Mitch McConnell. He said, our economic comeback is just beginning. But even in these early days of our careful reopening, the American people are already trouncing expert predictions and starting to come back strong. Because of the Paycheck Protection Program, tens of millions of Americans have kept receiving paychecks instead of pink slips, and millions of small businesses have lived to see the reopening instead of closing their doors forever. The start of our recovery would look radically different without the Senate's bold policy. Today, President Trump signed new legislation that will make the PPP even stronger. So, McConnell, in his statement, he was, focusing on the PPP. However, he did admit this crisis is not over. COVID-19 still plagues our country. Millions of Americans are still out of work. Families don't know what life will look like in the fall. As Senate Republicans have made clear for weeks, future efforts must be laser focused. He loves this phrase, laser focused, narrowly focused legislation, in contrast through the $3 trillion everything in the kitchen sink Heroes Act, right? So he says, future efforts must be laser focused on helping schools reopen safely in the fall, okay? Helping American workers continue to get back on the job, and helping employers reopen and grow. We must keep the wind in our sails, not slam the brakes with left-wing policies that would make rehiring even harder and recovery even more challenging. So obviously some partisan words there as well. Of course, we will see if Democrats and Republicans can work together to get something done for the American people. One last one, Chuck Schumer, Senate Minority Leader, right? Republicans control the Senate. Chuck Schumer is the leader of the minority party, the Democrats, right? Because there's less Democrats in the Senate than Republicans. That's why the Democrats are called the minority. So Senate Minority Chuck Schumer said, my worry is that these numbers will make the president, the Republican Senate complacent. The stimulus helped the economy get going. But we need a lot more, or we could go right back into the ditch with unemployment expiring. So he's touching on unemployment, of course. Interesting that no one really talked about another round of stimulus checks here. And we do know that some senators, Republicans as well as Democrats, have just earlier this week, even before the jobs report came out, were poo-pooing the idea of another round of stimulus checks, okay? I hope those folks have a change of heart. I hope they see the plight of the American people, and I hope another check does come, okay? I'm going to be honest. I think that if the jobs report came out and it was just terrible and it was just completely bleak, that probably would have upped the chances of another stimulus check, okay? Jobs report coming out like this, right? It probably makes it slightly less likely, okay? But I wouldn't give up hope on it entirely, all right? So please keep that hope alive, and let's not lose sight of the fact that these job numbers that came out, that Trump, for instance, is speaking of so positively, is the direct result of stimulus, right? It's a direct result of federal spending to keep the economy afloat and even kickstart the recovery. All right, y'all. Have a great Saturday. I may pump out another video today. I may not, but in any case, I will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.